Should governments privatize public utilities? Hi everyone, today I'd like to discuss a question that has long divided economists and policymakers. Should governments privatize public utilities such as electricity, water, railways, and telecommunications? Public utilities occupy a unique position in the economy. Unlike ordinary consumer goods, these services are indispensable for modern life. Households depend on electricity and clean water. Businesses rely on transportation and communication networks. Because these industries are essential, governments have historically played a central role in providing or regulating them. However, many countries have transferred ownership over public utilities to private firms in the hope of improving efficiency. Has this strategy been successful? Supporters of privatization argue that private ownership strengthens productive efficiency. Unlike state-owned enterprises, private firms operate under competitive pressure and face strong incentives to minimize costs, improve service quality, and respond to consumer preferences. Managers are rewarded for innovation and efficiency rather than for satisfying political objectives. Consequently, privatized firms may allocate resources more effectively and adopt new technologies more rapidly. Another argument concerns government failure. Public enterprises are not always managed according to economic principles. Political leaders may delay necessary price adjustments, overstep organizations to gain electoral support, or invest in projects with limited economic value. Such decisions can generate persistent financial losses that taxpayers ultimately bear. Privatization may reduce political interference and strengthen managerial accountability. Furthermore, selling state-owned enterprises can provide governments with substantial fiscal revenue. The proceeds may be used to reduce public debt or finance investments in education, healthcare, or infrastructure. Advocates therefore contend that governments should focus on regulation rather than direct ownership. However, critics argue that privatization is not appropriate for every industry. Many public utilities exhibit the characteristics of a natural monopoly. Because they require enormous fixed investment in infrastructure, it is often economically inefficient to construct multiple competing electricity grids, railway systems, or water pipelines. In such industries, competition may be limited regardless of ownership. If a private monopoly replaces a public monopoly, consumers may face higher prices without corresponding improvement in service quality. Another concern involves universal service obligations. Private firms naturally seek to maximize profits, whereas governments may pursue broader social objectives. Serving remote rural communities, maintaining unprofitable transportation routes, or providing affordable water to low-income households may be socially desirable even when such activities generate limited financial returns. Without effective regulation, privatization could reduce access to essential services for vulnerable populations. There is also the issue of regulatory capture. Large utility companies may exert considerable influence over the agencies responsible for regulating them. If regulators become overly aligned with the industry's state of supervise, competition and consumer protection may be weakened rather than strengthened. In my opinion, privatization should not be viewed as an ideological objective but as a policy instrument. Industries characterized by vigorous competition may benefit from private ownership. By contrast, sectors exhibiting natural monopoly characteristics require robust regulatory institutions regardless of whether ownership is public or private. The ultimate objective should be efficient, reliable, and equitable service, not simply public or private ownership. Ultimately, ownership alone does not determine economic performance. The quality of institutions, regulatory oversight, and corporate governance often matters far more. A well-regulated private utility may outperform a poorly managed public enterprise, just as an accountable public utility may outperform an inadequately regulated private monopoly. So here's my question. Should governments continue privatizing public utilities to improve efficiency, or should essential services remain under public ownership to protect the public interest? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for listening. See you next time.